Hello, Internet! Welcome to 2.5 Brains. This is our latest discussion of the latest episode of The Amazing Race, episode 6 of The Amazing Race, season 33. Break it all down here and talk all about it. So be sure to subscribe to miss anything. You can like our Facebook page, facebook.com/Pavement Road Production. We got more people liking this week than we have in a while, which is exciting. You can definitely share the post, tell your friends, comment away, and email the show directly. pavementroadproductions@gmail.com. So be sure to subscribe, and we'll go ahead and get started here in just a moment. Jessica, welcome to the show.
Thanks.
Indeed.
Yeah, indeed.
Indeed.com.
.com.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, Jessica, what did you think about the show? Give us your initial thoughts.
Oh, I mean, without going too much into it, remember how last week we were talking about people saying stupid things?
Yeah.
Well, I guess I am just predicting the future with some of this stuff that happens.
Yeah, spoiler alert, right?
Yeah, spoiler alert, I guess.
So, yeah, you were pretty red hot going into that, talking about that episode, huh?
Talking about this episode?
Yeah.
Or you mean watching the episode as
Right.
I'm feeling my body on the couch from what people were saying?
Right, that.
Yeah, it was annoying. It
Well,
was really stupid.
what was it, though? I don't get it.
I mean, let's just go into it then. The detour decision.
Yeah.
So, cheese or mule? So, the mule was getting the goats, I thought it was goats or sheep's milk, and getting a mule set up with their gear and it's not really a saddle, but I guess a saddle, and putting the milk on there, and then just going a short way to where people were doing the cheese making challenge, and then they get their clue. So the cheese making challenge, I've eaten cheese before. I know how to make cheese. I've made cheese once. We got this. It's fine. It'll be perfect. Oh, my dad works in a restaurant, so of course I can make cheese. Lord Jesus, save me.
Mm-hmm.
Because the one that says, oh, I've made cheese before, yeah, that worked out real well for you, real well. And all the others did fine. But I mean, come on. I mean, yeah, I love cheese. Of course I can make cheese. I have
basket.
Yeah, well, not even that. Like, then it's talking, the one that really set me off too, Sherry and Akbar, like, we make cheese. We make mac and cheese all the time. You make a roux. You said you make a roux. That's not making cheese. Making a roux is melting cheese. A roux is flour and butter melted, adding milk, melting cheese. Completely different. Completely different. I have made cheese. I have successfully made some cheese and then not successfully made some other cheeses. It's so frustrating. Don't just everybody... The one that says that they can do it, they didn't do it. And they had to leave anyways. So it's like, don't say you can do something because you did it once or you've seen it before. Unless you're a master at it, just say, I think I'd be able to do this because I've done something before like this once. End rant.
It's funny. You know who taught Morgan Jones how to use his keto stick?
Who?
A cheesemaker.
Oh, that's great. I mean, I love cheese, so of course I can make it. I eat cheese all the time.
Yeah.
Mozzarella and cheddar, ricotta, cream cheese.
Prosciutto.
Yeah. Prosciutto. That's prosciutto.
Shut up.
I eat mozzarella with prosciutto, yeah.
Exactly.
But
that's what I'm trying to say.
so yeah, so cheese making in a nutshell obviously is they had to go get their milk, go there and make cheese. And they watch the person make the cheese, which is fine. And you're paying attention to what they're doing. You heat it up to 65, then you add the other cheese into it, and you continually stir and heat up to 85. The trick is you got to keep it at 85 and let it keep cooking so it's going to start to curdle. But one team neglected to keep doing that while the others were fine. And then you strain it and you put it in the bowl and whatever. It's fine. It's basket cheese. It's a soft cheese. It's like a ricotta. But... That's all I can say about that. Don't say stupid things.
Right. And, obviously the part with the mule, it's you really didn't want to do with that one because you're afraid the mule's going to be a stubborn mule.
Well, you would, assume that it was going to be not listening to you. Instead, they just happily just
Yep.
did exactly what they were supposed to.
The challenge of that was just the attention to detail by having the actual, setting up everything correctly, with the saddle.
Mm-hmm.
Once you had the saddle set up, the mule walked and it was easy. It was no big deal, So it's, we've seen it before with animals, the horses and the elephants, they don't want to listen.
Right.
In this case, the mule's like, yeah, whatever, let's do it.
Yeah, like I said, I feel like they had mules there that are used to just doing that in general, so it's just another day at the office.
Yeah.
Yeah,
for sure. And granted, they can still have problems, but in this case, they didn't seem to at all. That was by far the easier one.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, and I started to throw a fit when my team picked that one to do that one Holderness, and then the good thing they did. I'm glad they did.
Yeah.
I'm not always right.
Right.
You got that recording too, so you better save that.
Save that. Mark this data on the calendar.
Yeah.
So obviously that was an interesting episode, and the initial thoughts of it for me too. It was a challenge that felt like would have been really interested if the team that left the detour last ended up finishing last.
Mm-hmm.
It would have been made the season not obviously I like that team, but it would have made the season a lot more interesting if they got knocked out, because it would have made way more. The team that's dominating gets knocked out here. It'd be way more interesting.
Yeah, I mean, they definitely had to hustle to get back, and it kind of was easy, though, because they're, the team that struggled always continued to struggle, and they were easy to pass.
Yeah.
If it happens again with them and they're at the back of the pack, it may not be that easy for them to catch up this time.
Well, it's true. Kind of like you said before, and it's the teams who are struggling, who are, the more numbers, the smaller numbers get, the less room for error, because there's not that low-hanging fruit.
Yeah.
Right. So.
Yeah. Slow and steady.
Yeah. There's not that team that's going slow and steady. Everybody's good once you get to the final 4 or 5.
Right, yeah.
So, cool. What's next?
The roadblock of the water obstacle course.
Yeah. Tell me about that.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think the most entertaining part was watching everybody put their wetsuits on. That was pretty funny.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh.
Ooh. Kind of freak out. Anyways.
Good.
So they had to put on a wetsuit and basically just go through an obstacle course. They had to find the clue within that obstacle course. As they went through it, there were natural water slides, and they had to jump, and they had a zip line. It looked pretty fun.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If we did, they were in France for this one, right? This
Corsica, yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, it was fun. I mean, that's where I think it was Ryan was able to overcome and get ahead of the team that ended up being last, because he I guess we'll get more into it when we actually talk about them, but I have some things to say about that as well.
Yeah, we'll get that next. I was just gonna say the only other thing was, obviously on the detour, one team was last, and it was Ryan and Dusty. They were last. They just didn't have the patience to sit there and let it cook long enough, so they kept turning it off and turning it back on.
Because they thought they were burning it, but you didn't even let it cook.
Yeah, you gotta curdle it, And then they ended up being last, and they switched and got that one done pretty quick.
Yeah.
And from the decision to switch, they rolled the rest of the way.
Yeah, they hustled. Yeah.
I mean they even had to push their car up the hill.
Mm-hmm. Well, like we also talked about too, is they didn't have to drive themselves anywhere, so there was no room for getting lost this week. So everyone benefited from that, because the teams that would normally get lost, they would have probably gotten lost again, and that would have helped with Ryan and Dusty as well.
And sometimes there's issues with that. I mean, there used to be back, I don't know if it was maybe when they first switched over to HD, or probably maybe before that, they used to have they had to have the camera plugged into the car.
Mm-hmm.
They keep the camera battery rolling, and it would kill the battery of the car. And so they have to stop and get the new car, and it happened 4 times a season.
Yeah.
And it was really horrible. Whoever had that happen to them, or they get a taxi, and the taxi has to stop for gas,
mm-hmm.
or a taxi gets a flat tire.
Yeah.
That can happen. Obviously,
mm-hmm.
Ryan and Dusty, their vehicle wasn't going. They had to push it to get it started.
Yeah, couldn't get it going on a hill.
Right.
Yeah.
So, that stuff does happen. But overall, yeah, you probably would rather not have to drive. You'd probably rather have someone else drive you
mm-hmm.
in most cases.
Yeah.
And it looks like it didn't seem like anything this episode was too far away.
No, it didn't.
Yeah, everything seemed pretty within a few miles.
Nothing was really that difficult, I would say, this episode either. Like, the obstacle course was more fun than hard. It was strenuous, I guess, because that stuff gets strenuous, but...
Yeah. And it was really tough for one team. Want to talk about that next?
Yeah.
So who got eliminated this week, Jessica?
Sherry and Akbar, who always is all over Sherry for being last, and let's go faster, go faster. Sherry, go faster. Why aren't you moving faster? Well, Akbar, why were you moving faster? Why were you so slow? Tired? Were you tired like she was tired? Okay, I'm done.
Yeah, they definitely didn't do great. He definitely slowed down this time. They're both older and out of shape. I mean, they're both, they talk about how they're used to be Division I athletes, and that's great, but,
just the accepting of that, and he was always on her about that stuff that got annoying. And also, they started the episode by saying they're going to be one team. He said, I'm changing my strategy. She's like, we're changing our strategy. It's like, yeah, he didn't listen. They didn't do any of that. Yeah. So.
Yeah, I mean, they said it's one of the things, you could say I used to be a lot of things. I used to be, 30 pounds lighter too, but guess what? I mean, I'm not anymore. So I can try to get back there, but when you're older, sometimes you just got to accept that you're older now. And that is what it is.
Yeah, and making roux is not making cheese.
Right, for sure. So, and they struggled this week. They have struggled a lot, and it was one of those things where it was bad. It was a bad leg to be last, especially because there was if you fell behind, it really wasn't a great leg to make up. And ironically, the team who went out of the detour 6th and finishing 3rd, but it was a lot of if you're gonna. I mean, they went up the hill. They had basically row up hill at the end there to the pit stop, but there really wasn't a ton of. I mean, it seemed like pretty much everybody was kind of staying right along. There wasn't the self-driving where someone else could get lost, whatever. The team wasn't very strong, and when they fell behind, it was like, well, it's gonna be tough for them to catch up because unless someone else really screws up, it didn't seem like there was a ton of room for anybody else really to screw up anything royally. Lulu and Lolly did a little bit. We'll talk about that, I guess. But, I think they fell behind, and there wasn't the only way they were really going to catch up was if they ran a perfect leg the rest of the way, and somebody else screwed up.
Right.
It's like the NFL team who's, a game out in the last game of the season, and like you have to win, and somebody else has to lose for you to get in, and that's you can win, and that's great, but somebody else has to lose for you to get in.
Yeah.
You gotta get in and get help. Win and get help.
Right.
So, and they just didn't. They fell behind it and couldn't get caught up because they weren't that strong of a team, physically or communication wise.
Yeah, that goes without saying. Yes.
And that's there's really two things that will do in most teams: lack of communication or lack of attention to detail. If you're bad at one of those two things, you're in trouble. And they were pretty decent with attention to detail. They seemed like they were okay, but they just didn't communicate or work well together as a team. But again, they seem like really great people because they do this after school program for kids and they help keep kids out of trouble, out of gangs and like that. So they seem like awesome people.
Yeah, no qualms against anything like that on a personal level. It's game level. Arguing so much and getting on one person for doing exactly what you did to get you guys eliminated and everything else.
Yeah, it was kind of ironic. They're talking about after how he screwed up and they lost, and he's like, yeah, it wasn't our day. We didn't do a good job this time. Like,
yeah, he said it was my fault.
It was my fault, and he's like, oh well, time, whatever. But he kind of like brushed off like, oh well, time to move on.
Yeah.
But when she was messing up, he wasn't like, oh, well, time to move on. He's like, what are you doing?
No, that's why it's good that it went out on his note, because if it went out on her note, it would have just been like...
Yeah, you never would have heard the end of it.
Whole other story.
So that's why I think Sharon Akbar got eliminated this week.
Yeah.
Cool. Are you ready for the power rankings then?
Sure.
So let's talk about the power rankings down to the final 5, Jessica. Who's number 5?
Arun and Natalia.
Yeah, why them?
I mean, they're definitely in this spot. I don't know if they're going to make it past the next week, depending on what everything is going on. And, if they have to drive themselves places, then they're definitely in trouble. But, they get along well and everything. I just don't think they have the strength over the other teams that are remaining to stay.
For sure. They finished 4th this week. They did a good job.
Yeah.
But I think they're the weakest team left. And like I said, we said last week we think Sherry and Akbar will go in the next 2 weeks. And we also think Natalia and Narun will go in the next 2 weeks. Well, again, it could be another non-elimination. And if that's the case, then good for them. But I can definitely see there being at least one more non-elimination or 2. It's been a kind of a weird season for that because there's the break in there, everything, and an early non-elimination. So
yeah,
it's been it seems like there's been a lot more this season than there have been in the past. But also, like I said, the way they're, if you finish first or second, you leave first. If you finish after that, you leave with that group. So
yeah.
They're leaving in groups this year, which is a little bit different too. So
yeah, but before they had the same thing. They'd leave in times.
They
would have different times that they would be leaving. So.
Right. So it was similar, and in this case, it's 2, 3, 4, and 5, or 2, 3, and 4, whatever, kind of all got there at the same time, anyways. And then so 2 goes with 1, and then whatever. But usually, usually if you finished the leg, let's say 3 hours before the second team, you'd get you could leave like 3 hours early, as opposed to leaving right when the second team leaves. In this case, so it's.
I don't even remember that. I just remember the past couple seasons where they'd be like, you leave at 8:15 and you leave at 8:30. You leave at 8:45, and some they would have multiple people at certain times.
Yeah, and they would do that depending on certain factors, but. Back years ago, when I remember, earlier on, you basically would leave 12 hours from when you arrive. Mm-hmm. So if you leave, if you're last, if you're second last, or it's a non-elimination, you survive, then you would be still probably leaving 3 hours after the team that was first, because you leave kind of, equivalent to when you arrived. Mm-hmm. So, but either way, so those final 3 teams will all be leaving together. So we'll see what happens. It's gonna be, really a matchup of who can, and they haven't seems like they haven't been flying, or if they are, it's not part of the race because they started the leg in France.
Yeah,
they didn't have to get on a plane and fly to France. Right. So I bet you that's like kind of a thing they're kind of taking out. Thing. Yeah, they're probably taking out the actual cross country travel. They probably have to get tested and everything like that, and to travel to other countries and yada yada.
Probably too many variables to have that count right now.
No, for sure. So that's it takes a little bit out of it, but it makes sense. It's definitely been a modified season, but filming during a pandemic, what can you do?
Yeah.
Anything else about Rune and Natalie, or talk about them at all?
No, kind of went off about them for a while, anyways.
Yeah. So Rune and Natalia, they're definitely the weakest team left, but they could still survive. I mean, they finished 4th this week, so they could do it again. But
5th or 4th.
Yeah. So I could see them. I could see them going further, but either way, who's number 4?
Lulu and Lala.
Yeah, and they finished 5th this week, and they really shouldn't have. They had a big mistake, a couple mistakes.
They didn't read their clue.
Correct. What did they do wrong?
They brought their bags to the kayak, and they were supposed to leave everything in the van.
Yep.
Because they had to kayak to the pit stop, but they weren't supposed to bring things with them.
Yeah, so they did inflate a kayak, and then kayak upstream to the pit stop. And they're supposed to secure their bags in the vehicle. There's a driver there who has the vehicle, so they didn't want them taking their bags across the water.
Well, I mean, they're probably going back to that anyways afterwards, so that's why.
Yeah. Or the driver dropping the stuff off or whatever. But either way, they didn't read their clue. They brought their stuff down, and they go back up to where the car was, secure it. That cost them a little bit of time. And again, it was a very physical task. They weren't great at it, and they lost some time, and they weren't able to make it up.
No one was really great at this part.
No.
Not really.
Not really. And they struggled, and they ended up arriving when like 2, 3, 4 were already there, and they showed up. So they definitely didn't do great. They didn't pay attention to detail. There are some things they're good at, but overall, I think they're the second weakest team left.
Yeah, and they got to cook. They cooked cheese. They made cheese.
They did.
They did successfully make cheese.
They did. So
Didn't have to hear about how I'm not a cook, but I mean they did make it.
there you go.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, I mean they have some stuff that attention to detail issues and some things they're skilled, but other things they're not as skilled at. And again, it's one of those things where if something's right in their wheelhouse, they'll be good. They'll finish probably the top 2 or 3.
Yeah.
But if someone's not in the wheelhouse, they're gonna struggle.
Yeah.
That's kind of where I see them.
Yeah. Agreed.
What's next?
Number 3, flight attendants.
The flight attendants, yeah. So Kayla and Raquel were third. Tell me about them.
So they decided to follow the Holderness family and do what they were doing and did the mule challenge in the beginning, which was fine, but they didn't have their attention to detail there. They had to figure out what was wrong with their saddle, and they had the part that holds the milk wrong. Eventually they did figure that out, and they were second, I believe, after them to get that stuff done, but it took them a while. They were pretty far behind in second to get that done. But after that, I mean, they did well. What was it? Raquel did the obstacle course and worked with either Lulu or Lala. I don't remember who it was. And they were working together about the clue and everything, keeping an eye out. And Lulu or Lala told her that, pointed out the clue, and Raquel grabbed it and then just ran ahead and left them in the dust. So that caused a little rift between teams.
Yeah. And either way, I mean, it's fine. I mean, it's
fine. Just don't help each other then.
Right. And if you're gonna help somebody, you can help them to a point, but you don't have to walk and hold hands. Like, oh, don't forget what the clues are. Oh, thank you, got the clue. Cool. Then you don't have to wait for them. Like they're and she was kind of know that they didn't wait for her, but it's like, it's a race.
I don't even think that they waited. She just got winded anyways, so she was gonna be behind anyways. Yeah. So Raquel just didn't wait for her. Right. But unless you're agreeing upon, like, okay, we're going to finish and finish this together and not leave each other, like, there's no alliances of that. So you can't get mad about it, really.
Yeah. I mean, you can help each other out. And like I said, and I said, if you're a good team, if you're a really good team, being friendly helps.
Yeah.
But, so they don't U-turn you, but you really get no benefit out of it if you're the best team helping somebody else.
Yeah.
So, the only way you really... except for last season, which cost 4 teams the money, is forming an alliance. Forming an alliance as a good team is really not beneficial.
Yeah.
I mean, the only thing it does is it keeps the target off you because you're nice and likable.
Right.
But so yeah, they did well. They finished second. They named the mule after their boyfriends, because I guess their boyfriends are bunch of asses.
Colt something, I don't remember the name of it.
Something like that.
It wasn't that funny.
It wasn't that funny. They thought it was a lot funnier than it was.
Yeah.
But I guess they just called their boyfriend a couple of horses' asses. So, I mean, whatever.
Yeah, that's fine.
Anyways,
if one of the mules could kick.
Yeah, right, exactly. Oyage. Oyage.
Oyage. Yeah.
Gus. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Gus.
So what is number 2? Is number 2?
Kim and Penn.
Ken and Pim.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Kim and Penn.
Holderness, yeah. So Holderness
family, Holderness.
Why are they here?
Because they kicked ass.
They did really well this week.
Yeah, I mean, I initially thought they made the stupid decision by doing the mule challenge, but man, they were rocking at that, and the mule went right away, and that's when I figured, okay, they probably do this all the time, these mules, so they didn't care. And then from there... they had a really big lead on everybody. Every time they got to something, everyone else was in the dust. So they got through the mule challenge, and then Penn did the water obstacle course and just went through that like nothing. And then they got their kayak and blew it up and got to the pit stop number 1 like nothing else. Then everybody else was just an hour later. Yeah,
right. They were there. They said 2, 3, 4, and 5 all got there on the same time.
Mm-hmm.
1 and 6 were, weren't close. It was interesting, and I mean, I don't know how they did a good job. Obviously, they ran a pretty flawless leg of the race.
Yeah, no, it was
for sure.
Yeah,
and they did really solid. I don't know.
They said they had a different attitude going in to have fun and not stress too much. So I don't know. I don't know if that was actually what they did, but
Yeah.
they did well.
And it's it's way, and like she even said at the end too, it's way easier to have fun when you're winning. You know, and when things go your way, when it's when things go away, it's way easier.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
But I think they did a good job. I was debating whether to put them 1 or 2. I still think the team that's 1 has the best shot of winning overall. But again, they're really solid. And I said if somehow Ryan and Dusty get knocked out, my money's on Penn and Kim the rest of the way. I was gonna say Kim and Penn, which is the same thing.
Same thing. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
I could see it going. I could see them. Like I said, I mean, if the best thing they can do, Penn and Kim, is to have Dusty and Ryan get U-turned and get knocked out. Like if they don't do it themselves, if somehow they can get those 2 knocked out, that would be huge, and they'd be the front runners for sure.
And this episode, I also predicted how our next number 1 people, if you will, that they have a weakness and they're not. They can get eliminated. Something can go wrong with them, and they can screw up and they can fall, even though they're athletic AF. They screwed up this week.
So let's talk about who number 1 this week was.
Ryan and Dusty.
Yeah, it was definitely not their best week.
No.
Definitely wasn't their best
this is
week.
An overall judgment.
For sure. They definitely struggled, but I will say the reason I feel good about them still is because they had an abysmal leg. They had a really bad leg of the race.
And they still
finished third.
Right? Oh, well, yeah, I know. They were able to catch up, but they should have left when the cheese thing when they thought that they were struggling with it to begin with.
Yeah.
I don't know why they stayed. Usually I would say don't leave right away, but at that point when they just kept turning the heat off to what they were doing, they weren't going to get anywhere.
Yeah, when they clearly had no idea what they were doing, they should have switched.
Just left right
And
away.
like I said, they tried to do it wasn't a straightforward athletic one. They tried to do the more athletic challenge.
Yeah. This one, that one definitely wasn't the athletic one, though, the cheese making.
Right, no, for sure.
Like, not at all.
Neither one really was, but
No.
the other one was more so.
Dusty had made cheese before, so they had that. They had it.
Yeah.
They got it.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, they are beatable. I mean, obviously they're not unbeatable.
This shows that they are this week, yeah.
Yeah. And let's say, because you can look at it either way. Look at the fact that while they were so far behind, they caught up and finished third, even though they did a really bad leg. Or you can look at it as, can you imagine if the second part of that, if the roadblock wasn't athletic, if it was like a spelling challenge or something, like I'm not saying they're dumb, they can't spell. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying the athletic. Thank God for them they got an athletic challenge because they could catch up. If they didn't get something that was like really easy for them, or somebody else really struggled at.
It only helped because someone struggled at that one, because Arun and Akbar left at the same time when they started it. So Arun finished before Dusty did, or Ryan did.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if Akbar wasn't slow, they might have still been last.
Right, and then the mistake by Lulu and Lala, and then Arun and Natalie just couldn't inflate their stuff as quickly. And, and that's how they got passed up. Right. But you're completely right. If the last two parts of the leg aren't physical, I mean, or two teams don't mess up something.
Right.
If there's if the other teams ahead of them run a flawless rest of the leg, rest of the race, I mean, it's very possible they get knocked out, and they are beatable. So I really do think. I mean, they're and even on the mat, the girls were making fun of them kind of right to the face, and they didn't even notice, and.
They're a little bit cocky, I think.
They are.
So
they are. I do like them. They are.
I like them, but, I mean, there was absolutely no reason for them to start stripping. I mean, first of all, they took their shirts off and everything before they put their damn life vest on to friggin' kayak up the river to begin with, and then they're taking their stuff off just to show their muscles on TV, and I was laughing when they were pointing that out because it was funny. I was like, why are you taking your life jacket off?
Yeah, no, for sure. And
Not that I was complaining.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly, Jessica. Well,
I had like a 12-pack. What am I supposed to do?
I know. I got a 12-pack also.
In the fridge.
Yeah, in the fridge. It's delicious.
Yeah.
But so I mean, I do like them. They're cocky. And, whatever. It is what it is. I still think they're the best team, but like I said, nobody will feel bad U-turning them.
No.
And they're, they haven't had one yet because things are all messed up the season, so who knows what they're going to do.
Yeah.
But they've been switching things up. They've been doing the head-to-heads and all kinds of other weird little twists, which I really like. I like most of the Amazing Race twists that they do, unlike other shows. I do like most of their twists. So if there's a U-turn and I would think there's probably going to be one coming up.
Mm-hmm.
And there hasn't been a lot of like long distance traveling. I mean, the last leg there was, but this past one there really wasn't.
Yeah.
So that also makes it, you have less time to catch up when the legs seem shorter.
Right.
And if there's a U-turn, you better crush both ends of those if you want a shot, because especially if you're going from right from the pit stop to, in this case you had a kayak, which gave you some time to catch up, but like if you're driving, drive 5 miles to the pit stop, you're not self-driving, like it's not gonna happen. Especially there hasn't been any traffic this season. It's the first season with no traffic.
Well, it also depends on the location, because I mean they're in India or something, and there's traffic all over the place. So yeah.
Right. In this case, there wasn't, and people are depends on the lockdown of the countries where at that point and everything else too.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
But like I said, Ryan and Dusty are beatable, and I think depending on if they get U-turned and they're both not super physical challenges, they have to do both ends of the detour.
Mm-hmm.
They definitely can be beat.
Yeah.
It's just gonna take the teams that it's gonna take. There not being a Sherry and Akbar or everyone and Natalie who can screw up enough to let somebody else catch them.
Well, yeah. Now we're at a point where everybody that's here does have a shot.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't say that Ryan and Dusty can't do attention to detail stuff, but I think they're gonna have a little bit of harder time doing that stuff than others.
For sure. So if they do get forced to do a detour, or if they make a mistake like they did this time, I think they could really. They are primed to be picked off. The only thing I'll say is obviously if there's a physical part of it, they can catch up, or if somebody else really screws up, they can catch up, because they're good enough to overcome mistakes more so than a lot of other teams. That's why I have them here. But again, there's so many times the team, it hasn't been lately, I guess, but a few seasons ago, it seemed like every season the team who dominated would get picked off like the final 5, final 4, because they were just so good. They never had a mistake. They finally had a mistake they didn't know what to do because they had never faced adversity, or they get a U-turn because everybody's like, well, they're going to win, so we have to U-turn them because it's obvious.
Yeah.
Like last season, there's 5 teams that were all working together, so they didn't U-turn any of those 5. They U-turned somebody below, somebody below them, and it's like, well, that's not smart, but there wasn't necessarily an overt threat to win the race.
Yeah.
There wasn't one team that was like way out in front.
Right.
And in this case, there is. So it's an easy target for a U-turn.
Mm-hmm.
So we will see. I think they still are the strongest team, but I say if you're looking at trends, or whatever, I'd say Lulu and Lala are trending down. I'd say the flight attendants are trending up.
Yeah.
Holderness is definitely trending up, and Ryan and Dusty are still number 1. They're trending down.
Yeah. The only hope is that the flight attendants will U-turn them, and I think they will, given the chance.
I think if you have a chance,
because I don't think Holderness will U-turn Ryan and Dusty.
I don't either. I don't think they need to.
No, I don't think they need to, but Raquel and Kayla do.
Yeah, or Lulu and Lala. If you can get ahead of them, it doesn't hurt to U-turn them. It's like I said, Holderness really, if they finish second to them the whole way, they can still maybe have somebody knock them out for them.
Yeah.
Again, the challenge with a U-turn is getting to the U-turn mat before the team you want to U-turn.
Well, right.
And that's really the biggest part of it.
Yeah.
So if the team is out in front, they stay way out in front.
You're not gonna get them.
Yeah, right. And I think this was the leg for them. Ryan and Dusty to get picked off this week. I really did, and it just didn't happen because there was two at least one other team that was significantly weaker than them, and all things considered, they were going to beat that team.
Yeah.
So. Anything else, Jessica?
Nah.
So we're caught up now, which is exciting. Obviously, episode 6 is the one that just aired, so we'll get this one out for you guys. Hope you enjoy it. We'll try to be caught up and go through like normal. It's been like a few years ago. I think when we did Survivor like a couple seasons ago, in like the spring, I think it was, every time we tried to record, something happened, or the week something went wrong, or you got sick, or I got sick, or there's always something going on, and we're always like a week behind recording. Last year, obviously, with our wedding, that's different, obviously, but like this year too, it's been like, you'll get sick, I get sick, we have something going on, we have, it's been very hard to keep up with the recordings this season as well. So it is what it is. It's been rough, but we're caught up. We're going to try to stay caught up. But again, every time we say that, something happens. So hopefully there's no more obstacles. We can just keep going.
Yeah.
Like the Amazing Race.
Exactly.
And our feet didn't get bit too much this season. This episode. So that's good.
You did a little bit.
I did a little bit at the beginning, but Selena's laying next to me on the couch. Bailey's laying across me on the couch. So I think we're okay.
Yeah.
Anything else to add, Jessica?
No.
Thank you for being on the show as always.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll see what happens with the Survivor. We do have to get caught up on another show too that we're way behind on. And that show's in the news today. I'll talk about it if you haven't heard of it.
I already heard about it.
OMG. OMG. So be sure to subscribe to Sam Anything. Like our Facebook page, facebook.com/Pavement Road Productions. You can email the show directly, pavementroadproductions@gmail.com. Like I said, subscribe, tell your friends on YouTube there, and share the post. And like I said, gmail.com, pavementroadproductions@gmail.com for emails. Facebook.com/pavementproductions as well for our Facebook page. Thanks for listening. Thanks for being a part of the show. Anything else, Jessica?
No, I don't think so.
All right. Until next time, safe travels.